Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the stoop chair. This is the stoop chair that once belonged to Thomas Busby. Thomas was a man who lived in Thirsk, North Yorkshire, and wasn't known as a very nice man, but he really loved his chair. Like, a lot. In 1702, he found his father-in-law sitting in it, and it sparked an argument between the two of them. The father-in-law threatened to take his daughter back, which is very 1702 of him, and that's when Busby kicked him out of the house. After this, Busby ended up going over to the father-in-law's house, and things escalated so far that Busby actually ended up killing his father-in-law, and then he went on to hide the body in the woods. Of course, the body ended up being found, and this led to Busby getting convicted and sentenced to death. It is said that on his ride to his execution, he has to stop by his favorite pub for a beer, and this request was fulfilled, which is also very 1702. Apparently, as he finished his drink, he said, quote, "May sudden death come to anyone who dare sit in my chair." I really don't know what it is with this guy in his chair, but while it currently resides in the Thirsk Museum, it has been recorded that many terrible fates have been met by the people who have sat in the chair. In 1972, it was decided to hang the chair from the ceiling so that no one could sit in it again, which is probably for the best. In our number 9 spot today, we have Annabelle. It's not just a movie, folks, there really is a very real doll that the tales have been inspired by. The doll now resides in the Warrens Occult Museum, where it absolutely belongs, but where did it come from? Well, there was once a college student named Donna who received the doll as a gift from her mother, who had purchased it from an antique store. Donna and her roommate started to notice some pretty creepy things happening and swore that the doll was moving. They said it would appear in different places and positions throughout their apartment before things began to worsen. Donna began to find notes that said help in her apartment, and one night she found the doll in a different position and covered in some sort of red substance. The girls then decided to contact a medium who solidified all of their beliefs and told them that the doll had been possessed by the spirit of someone who was killed in their apartment building. For some reason, the girls didn't immediately get rid of the doll, and the story goes that their friend Lou, who was at the girl's apartment, heard strange noises one night and went to investigate, and this is when he was attacked and killed by Annabelle. The girls finally contacted a priest who told them that the doll was possessed by a demon straight from hell, and then he put them in contact with Ed and Lorraine Warren, paranormal investigators. The two of them tried to do an exorcism on the doll, but it apparently failed, which is why it is now kept in a glass box at their museum. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Goddess. This statue is actually called the Goddess of Death, or sometimes the Woman from the Lem. This artifact is made out of limestone, and it was created sometime around 3500 BC, and it was found in Cyprus in 1878. Over the years, it has belonged to many different families who all have been ruined and dismantled by death. After the first 6 years of ownership, all 7 members of the first family died. It then moved on to a second owner, and after 4 years, death began to come to him and his family as well. There was then a long period where it was unclaimed, but once the third family got a hold of it, several members of that family began to die as well. The third family ended up turning it over to the Royal Scottish Museum, where it thankfully still resides, hopefully to never ruin another family again. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Hope Diamond. The Hope Diamond was most likely cut from a mine in India and placed into a statue. It is a huge 45 carats, and it has a beautiful rare blue color. It is one of the most famous diamonds in the world, partially for its beauty, but also because of all of the mysterious happenings surrounding it. One day a thief stole the diamond and is said to have died quite soon after. From then on, anyone who owned or even touched the diamond was said to have met an ill fate. Whether it was at their own hands, a mass execution, or a pack of wild dogs, the diamond seemed to have placed a curse on any and everyone who got near it. In 1958, it was fortunately donated to the Smithsonian Museum and has been safe there ever since. I wonder if it got moved from the museum, if the curse would continue. Do cursed items ever, like, retire? In our number 6 spot today, we have the Dybbuk box. The box, which was originally just a plain old wine box, is said to have been possessed by a Dybbuk, which in Jewish mythology is a malicious demon. The box began to gain attention in 2001 when it was being auctioned off on eBay. The seller explained that he had bought it at an estate sale of a woman who had survived the Holocaust. When he first opened the box, he found 2 1920s pennies, a lock of blonde hair bound with a cord, a lock of darker hair bound with a cord as well, well, a small statue that was engraved, a small golden wine goblet, one dried rosebud, and a single candle holder with 4 octopus-shaped legs. Since he bought the box, he reported that strange things began happening, such as really horrific nightmares for him and anyone who had stayed around or touched the box, and when he gave the box to his mother as a birthday gift, she suffered a stroke the same day. The box ended up in the hands of Zach Bagan, who is a paranormal investigator, and it now resides in his haunted museum. The box also gained even more attention in 2018 when Post Malone touched it, and has apparently been dealing with the repercussions of that ever since. So, I don't know what you want to do with that information. In our number 5 spot today we have Robert the Doll. Annabelle gets a lot of attention for being a haunted doll, but Robert is just as terrifying. Swear to God guys, the door just opened on its own. Robert the Doll's trying to come in right now. Robert the Doll was a childhood birthday gift from a grandfather to his grandson, who is also named Robert, but more often went by Gene. The story claims that while growing up with Robert, Gene would often be heard by his parents in his bedroom having conversations with himself in 2 entirely different voices. His parents would sometimes be woken up in the middle of the night to the sound of Gene screaming, only to find him completely frightened in bed with overturned furniture around him. Gene would blame Robert for all of the strange happenings, and at the time, no one really believed him. Gene kept Robert into adulthood, and it became what people would describe as an unhealthy relationship. Apparently, Gene took Robert everywhere with him and spoke as if he was a living entity rather than a doll. Okay, this story is already not great, but surprisingly, it gets worse. Gene lived in a house as an adult that was called the Artist's House. Robert would be left in the upstairs window where children in the area reported seeing the doll disappear and reappear, and they all chose to just stay clear of the house. After Gene passed away in 1974, a woman named Myrtle purchased the house, and apparently Robert as well. Visitors of the house could swear they could hear footsteps and giggling coming from the attic where Robert was, and some even claimed to see the doll's expression change if someone spoke poorly of Gene. Myrtle reported Robert moving around the house on his own, and after 20 years she decided that she had had enough and donated him to a museum. Robert still lives in the museum where he is safely locked up, but it is said that he still likes to place a little curse on those who take his photo without permission. The walls of the museum near Robert's glass case are riddled with notes from previous visitors and naysayers who are begging Robert for his forgiveness and asking him to remove any curse he has placed on them. In our number 4 spot today we have the Koh-i-Noor diamond. This diamond has an extremely controversial history, and it is the source of a lot of debate, but regardless of the ongoing conversations over who really owns it, we are here to talk about the curse that this stone is said to hold. This diamond dates back thousands of years, and its curse is said to only affect men. It is said that the jewel can bring about great wealth, but it can also bring great misfortune as well to those who own it. Folklore states that, quote, "He who owns this diamond will own the world, but will also know all its misfortunes. Only God or women can wear it with impunity." Throughout the history of the diamond, it was passed among many people and rulers who all fought bloody battles while in possession of it. Every prince who had it is said to have ultimately either lost their power or their life while in possession of it as well. Part of the controversy of the diamond is how it ended up in the hands of the British royal family during colonization in the 1800s. Ever since then, it has only been worn by female monarchs, including Queen Victoria and Queen Elizabeth. The diamond now resides in the crown of the Queen Mother and is on display in the Jewel House at the Tower of London. In our number 3 spot today we have the Dark Mirror. The Dark Mirror now belongs to the Traveling Museum of the Occult, who got it from the mirror's original owner. The mirror is said to show some pretty upsetting images when you stare into it. The original owner said that they purchased it from a psychic fair in the Columbus area and were shocked with the visions they saw when looking into the dark glass. Visitors to the Traveling Museum have claimed to see things such as their own corpse when they gaze into the mirror. I don't know, pretty creepy stuff. Look if you dare. In our number 2 spot today we have the Great Bed of Ware. I definitely wouldn't necessarily expect to see a bed as I waltz through a museum, but the Bed of Ware is actually one of the Victoria and Albert Museum's biggest attractions. This lavishly decorated bed is said to have been built in the 15th century for King Edward IV by a carpenter named Jonas Fosbrook. After a while, it is said that this bed began to be passed between the inns of Ware, which led to more common folk being able to get their shut-eye in this elaborate bed. Here's where the tale turns. It is said that once more people began sleeping in this bed, they also began covering it in graffiti and carvings. Apparently, this disrespect for what was said to have once been a regal item angered the ghost of the man who made it. This is where the curse comes into play. It is now said that anyone who dare try and sleep in the bed, unless you're a noble of course, will be attacked by the ghost of Fosbrook. He makes it his business to ensure that the bed only sees visitors who are fit for it. In our number 1 spot today we have Old Nick. Old Nick is often referred to as the Swansea Devil, and his story dates back to the 1890s, although he now resides in the Swansea Museum. So back in the 1890s there was the prestigious St. Mary's Church located right in the center of town. The church decided to do some renovations and they put out some ads to hire someone. When a local builder applied for the job and was turned down, he had a major overreaction and decided he wanted to get some kind of revenge. He went and bought the row of cottages that lay next to the church and then demolished them all. In their place he built large brick offices, and then he commissioned the carving of Old Nick and placed him right on top of the office building looking down at St. Mary's Church. Legend goes that he even placed the curse himself by saying, quote, "When your church is destroyed and burnt to the ground, my devil will remain laughing." Some years later, during World War II, a German blitz came through the town and it left most of the town, including St. Mary's, completely destroyed and burnt to the ground. But the office building with Old Nick was undamaged and remained standing. For a while Old Nick seemed to kind of disappear, but once he resurfaced there was a petition to put him back to where he was before, as well as a subsequent counter petition to put him far, far away from the rebuilt St. Mary's Church. As of now, Old Nick resides behind glass in the Swansea Museum, and it is said that he is enclosed in glass more for our protection than his.
Number 10. Pompeii artifacts. Once a flourishing Roman city located near the Bay of Naples in Italy, that was of course until 79 AD. That's when Mount Vesuvius erupted and it buried the entire city and sadly all of its inhabitants under layers of ash and pumice. Now the eruption was so powerful that it wiped out not just life within the general vicinity, but all life within a 16-mile radius. Yeah, it makes you think about Yellowstone National Park a bit, doesn't it? Like, oh, that's close. Earth is scary, I don't know. Pompeii remained buried and forgotten for almost 1700 years. That is until it was rediscovered in 1748. Now today Pompeii is an archaeological site that offers a glimpse into ancient Roman life with, of course, well-preserved ruins of homes, public buildings, streets, artwork, restaurants. They even opened a recent restaurant there. I don't know, it's a fun time now. And there's a great amount of people who steal from this ancient landmark. Yeah, how to get cursed 101. Here's how you do it, folks. Steal from Pompeii. Why would you? Okay, tourists would come and steal fragments of monuments, literally pieces of the city. They would just pocket it and then dip. Yeah, I'll just put this ballista ball on my fireplace. That looks lovely. For sure not cursed, right? 100 packages a year end up getting sent back to the archaeological superintendents in Pompeii. Most of them accompanied with a letter explaining the bad luck that occurred. They're like, sorry we took this brick, my grandmother died. That sucks. I feel bad. Let's move on. Number 9. Portrait of Bernardo de Galvez. Art is subjective, but I never knew it was haunted. My gosh, here we go. Bernardo de Galvez was a nobleman and military leader who played a significant role in the American Revolution. Widely regarded as a hero for his efforts to aid the American colonies in their fight against British rule. Some believe that there is a curse attached to his portrait. Yeah, haunted portrait? That's terrifying. According to legend, anybody who looks directly into the eyes of Bernardo's portrait will suffer a terrible fate. The curse was born during the Spanish-American War when American soldiers looted Galvez's home in Louisiana. They took his portrait as a trophy. Again, how to get cursed 101. Here's how you do it. Since then, several people who have come into possession of the portrait or stared deep into the portrait's eyes all have experienced misfortune in some way or another. One man inherited the portrait from his grandfather and then hung it in his home. Not long after, he lost his job and then his wife left him. Maybe he's just bad taste in art, I don't know. Another tale involved a museum curator who displayed the painting and then soon after suffered a heart attack. Now, even those who have seen photographs of the portrait, they claim to feel uneasy or experience strange occurrences. I should have led with that. Whoops, my bad. Number 8. James Dean's car. James Dean's love for fast cars was of course well known, and sadly because one of them took his life. One ultimately led to his tragic death at the age of 24, and some are convinced that his cars were cursed. All these vehicles are the reason for it. Dean's first vehicle was actually a Triumph Tiger. It was a T110 motorcycle, and it was involved in an accident that left him with a broken leg. Rough start. It gets worse. His next car, a Porsche 550 Spider, is the one that he famously died in, right after colliding head-on with another vehicle. I don't know if that one was cursed, but we should look into that maybe. That's already tragic. That's dark history right there. But after Dean's death, the Porsche was sold off and then quickly became infamous for causing more accidents and deaths. One of its owners even reported seeing James Dean's ghost sitting in the passenger seat shortly before crashing. That's so jarring. I couldn't imagine. I'd be like, I don't even know where to start with that. That's two bad things happening. Then the car disappeared from the public view in the late 1960s and has since been rumored to be hidden away by collectors who also believe it to be cursed. Yeah, fair. Keep that away, locked up. I don't even care where that is. I just looked directly into that light twice now. Three times. I gotta stop. Another Porsche that he owned was destroyed when it caught fire while being transported on a trailer, and a third Porsche that he had ordered, well, it never even made it to him. It was involved in an accident during transport that killed that driver. Whether you believe in curses or not, there's no denying that, this car collection has some dark, tragic history, some sort of bad juju going on. I don't know. That's why I don't have my G1 personally. That's why I don't drive, so I don't know. Number 7, the Dybbuk box. This small wine cabinet got some attention after being sold on eBay in 2003. Remember eBay? What a good time. So sketchy. The box was purchased by Kevin Manis. Now, shortly after, he claimed that said box was haunted and had caused him and his family to experience a series of terrifying events. A series. More than one. Health problems, terrifying events, even paranormal activity. They all saw ghosts. It's uncomfortable. He eventually sold the box to Jason Haxton, who ended up writing a book about his experience. He's like, yeah, sure, take it. 20 bucks, I don't care. Yeah, it was that bad. He wrote a book. Some believe that opening the box can release malevolent spirits into the world. Its origins go back to a survivor, a woman from World War II, and this came from her estate, apparently. So the history behind it is dark. It's seen some days, that's for sure. It now lives in the Haunted Museum. Remember that viral video, Post Malone touching that haunted artifact? That was this box. There we go. Zach Baggins, please keep an eye on this box. Thank you so much. Smash that thumbs up for ghost-proof glass. We love that stuff. That's great. Number 6, the Bassano vase. Also known as the Vase o' Death. That's a good one. Legend has it that this vase was crafted in Italy during the 15th century and was once owned by a powerful noble family. That's how it all starts, right? Then the curse comes. However, there it is. However, tragedy struck when several members of the family died under mysterious circumstances. Now at that point, curse confirmed, right? Absolutely. The curse of the Bassano vase is said to cause anyone who possesses it to suffer from physical or mental afflictions, sometimes both, and sometimes even bringing death. Despite its reputation as a cursed object, some are fascinated. They want this vase, or vase, I'm not really sure yet, but they want it in their home for some reason. They want to crack the code, they want to break the curse, right? A pharmacist, an archaeologist, both of these owners died shortly after receiving the vase, so I don't know what to believe anymore. The Italian police, apparently they buried it in a lead box somewhere out there, so that's great. I mean, it's gonna suck when we find it in 600 years, but for now, we're okay. Number 5, Thomas Busby's chair. A haunted chair, who would have thought? That's like Haunted Mansion stuff. Legend has it this chair was cursed by a vengeful witch who had been wronged by one of the members of the Busby family back in the 1800s. Yeah, she cursed a chair, now it slides out by itself. It's terrifying. It's like what happened? I don't know. 400 years ago. The curse was said to bring misery and misfortune to anyone who dared sit in the chair, so if you're around it, well, you better lock those knees up. Or squat. We're doing some squats all day in this bar. Over the years, many brave souls attempted to break the curse by, of course, sitting in it, only to be met with tragedy soon after. I'll be honest, I would probably sit on it. Yeah, I'd have a few pints, I'd get cocky, for sure, I'd do it. Some suffered from unexplained illnesses, while others were plagued by nightmares. One man even claimed that he saw ghostly apparitions floating around him after sitting in the chair. Yeah, he saw ghosts. That's how bad the backrest is. Despite its reputation, the Thomas Busby chair remained an object of fascination for many paranormal enthusiasts. Again, people want the vase, people want the chair, they just want to be around it. It was eventually acquired by the Thirsk Museum, dedicated to supernatural artifacts, where it remains on display to this day. If you want to go and take a seat for a minute, there you go, good luck. Number 4, the Anguished Man. I mean, first of all, aside from its dark history, the Anguished Man painting, who would be able to look at this? Imagine this on your wall in your home. That's from The Conjuring. No way, that's terrifying to look at. The Anguished Man is a painting with grim history, as all of these are. It's said to be haunted by the spirit of some artist, an unnamed artist, who created it. An artist who created this using their own blood into the paint as they worked. Yeah, a real artsy fella. Love doing that. Love mixing my own blood into my art. What? The painting has been passed down through generations of the artist's family, but each owner has reported strange occurrences while in possession, brief possession, of this haunting piece. Some have claimed to hear whispers and moaning coming from the painting late at night, which that's the scariest thing I could possibly imagine. Imagine your painting being like, huh? Who is that? What's going on? I just heard a from my painting. While others have actually seen ghostly apparitions out and about, not just, you know, moaning in the walls. Yeah, like Super Mario 64, just a live painting. That's terrifying. Would you spend the night with this painting? Comment down below. I'm a skeptic when it comes to all this stuff, but I don't know. I don't think I would do this, honestly. It's a bit too brave for me. Scariest painting ever. Let's move on. Number 3, Robert the Doll. First of all, Robert, that's not a scary doll name. We've got to rework that. Annabelle, nice. Chucky, even better. Robert, back to the workshop, my guy. Go figure something out. Let's talk about him. What did he do? A man named Rob Otto, he was given a doll that looked, well, a lot like him. He noticed right off the bat. He's like, oh, okay. Nice eyes. Hazel, wonderful. One of his servants who didn't like him made this doll. Yeah, you already know where I'm going here by what I'm saying. You're like, oh, okay, this was a voodoo doll, for sure. This is obviously a trap. Neighbors would hear Robert talking to this doll. Robert, the podcast. Tune in, there we go. Just talking to himself all day. Now, after Robert's death, sad, I know. The new owners of the house found that same doll up in the attic. Still there, still chilling out, still doing the podcast alone. Well, actually, their daughter found it. It must have been pretty jarring. The family was haunted by this doll. They would hear threats coming from it, so now Robert the doll is on display in a museum in Key West. Another haunted museum. That's terrifying. Robert, he seems too innocent, you know? Number 2, Elmo. This guy, not so innocent. This guy's done some stuff. I had like 8 Elmos growing up. I loved them. None of them talked to me. None of them knew my name. Thank God, that's a little personal. The Sesame Street icon has been in homes for many, many years. There was a literal stampede when Tickle Me Elmo was released. An employee was trampled. People go nuts for these little red guys. When the Elmo Knows Your Name toy was launched by Fisher-Price in 2005, that was game-changing, right? This guy's intimate. Now he's learning things. There were 15,000 names ready to go. Only one family was traumatized. Only one. Not bad. The Elmo toy apparently spoke on its own, threatening to harm the family in the Elmo voice, which is half hilarious, half terrifying. So they tossed it out immediately. But this happened more than once. The audio sounded off for some of these devices. Be Like Elmo sounded like Beat Up Elmo. The Elmo phone, released in 2009, often said 456, but in some cases it sounded like Who Wants to Have, right? 6 and sex, you know, they sound kind of similar, I guess. Very different things. We're all learning with Elmo, whether you like it or not. We're just learning some intimate topics. I like touching this today. I've been doing this a lot. This is cool. I feel like I'm at a museum. I'm like, hey, what's this? It could be whatever you want. It's a green screen. Number 1, the Great Bed of Ware. All right, we'll get nice and cozy for our last one here, and then we'll put it to rest. We'll put it to bed. Just not in this one, that's for sure. The Great Bed of Ware, it's massive, it's cozy, it looks like a bed a king would certainly sleep in, and rightfully so. You know, yeah, sure. I wouldn't. I'm not a king, but yeah, go get itchy. The Great Bed of Ware was built for the royal family back in 1463. It was 12 feet by 12 feet. Plenty of space to cut your toenails and get all dirty like a king would. Jonas Fosbrook was a carpenter from that time, and they impressed the king, which was King Edward IV at the time, with his work. So much so that the king gave him a pension for the rest of his life. Yeah, you're set, there you go, you're laughing, you're rolling in it. People would travel all across the land to see this beautiful bed. Now, what a fun family vacation. Yeah, we're not going to Disneyland, we're going to the Great Bed of Ware. Sorry, I don't know, I got laid off. All those who stayed in the bed did not have a good night's rest. No, instead they woke up scratched and bruised, or they would wake up on the floor. Somehow they would roll out of a 12-foot bed, right? Unless you're lanky and 6'2" like me, I don't know how that's possible. It's crazy. Today, it can be found in the Victoria and Albert Museum. Would you stay the night in this old haunted, dirty, and probably bug-infested, uncomfortable bed? Sound off below. I probably would. I don't know. I would starfish the whole time and be like, yeah, I can. Whatever. And ghosts? Nice. rest and a show. We're good to go.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the Terracotta Army. The Terracotta Army was discovered in China, and it is a massive piece of funerary art that is thought to be one of the most massive archaeological finds of modern times. It truly is incredible, and it's something that's been attracting tourists from all over the world since its discovery. But for those who did the discovering, well, things haven't really been going so well. In 1974, there were 7 farmers who happened to stumble upon this huge discovery, and you would think that this would come with some kind of a reward, but instead things have been going terribly for the farmers. Soon after the discovery, the government claimed their farmland. After this, their homes were demolished in order to make way for the exhibition halls and gift shops that were to come. They didn't just get nothing for this discovery, they ended up losing because of it. This is exactly why many people believe that perhaps with the unearthing of this huge piece, they also dug up some sort of curse that was buried long ago. In our number 9 spot today, we have the water jug. Okay, estate sales, they're weird places, there are weird things, there's some quirky items, but this has got to be one of the strangest on a whole bunch of different levels. It's a decorative drinking jug, but it's being held in a miniature cart that's being pulled by a porcelain donkey. I cannot make this item up, nor could I make up the fact that this kitschy item is also apparently haunted. The seller of this item spoke about how he grew up with the item around, as it was always displayed at his grandmother's house and she always kept it full of water. This was all fine and dandy until after she passed away, when he was taking care of the estate and he bumped into it. How was the jug filled with water when no one was there to fill it? He thought that perhaps it was just old leftover water and he just ignored it, but the same thing seemed to happen repeatedly. And it wasn't even like the water level was staying the same, it would increase seemingly all on its own. The seller decided that this was not an item that they wanted to hold on to and decided it would be best to pass on to someone who is ready to take on this very mysterious and very strange object. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Destiny Ring. Rudolph Valentino was an incredibly famous silent film star before he passed away at the incredibly young age of just 31 years old, and there are many out there who believe his untimely death was caused by the Destiny Ring. This ring is one that he picked up from a California jeweler, but before purchasing it there were warnings of the stories which claimed the ring was cursed, but Rudolph decided to just go ahead with the purchase anyway. It is said after this ring came into his possession, his luck really began to turn. The movies he starred in started to do poorly, some even flopping, and his career really began to struggle. From there he fell incredibly ill, and when he passed away he was wearing this cursed ring. From there, after his death, his lover ended up receiving the ring, but once it was in her possession she too fell extremely ill, and she decided to give the ring away. All the owners after that were reported to have died in strange ways or under mysterious circumstances, which has led the ring to now being placed in a bank vault all locked up so that it hopefully can never cause harm to anyone ever again. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Bassano vase. The Bassano vase was cast from silver in the 15th century and was apparently a wedding present for a bride who lived in a small village in Napoli. On the wedding night, however, the bride was found dying on the floor with her hands wrapped around the vase. With her last breaths, she vowed to have her revenge, and at this point it became unclear whether the vase was already cursed, or perhaps if this may be what caused the curse in the first place. As time went on, the vase was handed from person to person within her family, and with each new owner came another mysterious death. Because of this, the family decided to hide the vase away in some sort of a secret location, and this worked for a while until the vase was unearthed once more in 1988. The vase also contained a piece of paper from the family that warned, "Beware, this vase brings death." Well, of course, whoever found the vase did not listen, and instead they sold it once again. The first buyer, who is said to have been a pharmacist, owned the vase for 3 months before passing away under mysterious circumstances. Then there was a 37-year-old surgeon who died after having the vase for 2 months. After this was the archaeologist, who only made it 3 months with the vase in his possession, and at this point you get where this is going. Right now we don't know exactly where the vase ended up, but I'm just hoping it's somewhere deep underground or in space or something else far, far away from us all. In our number 6 spot today, we have the mask. This metal mask resembles the face of a monkey. It's definitely already a little strange looking, but the story behind it is even more interesting. According to the seller of this item, they explained that they acquired the mask in Thailand, but not before they experienced a supernatural battle where a witch used spells to bind the spirit of a jinn to the mask, trapping it. Since then, the mask is said to be full of supernatural powers, some of which could bring benefits, but it takes a whole pile of work. This mask is said to have the ability to fend off vampires as well as potentially bring riches to its owner, but it needs some things in return. The entity in the mask needs regular offerings of food and drink, and it also requires the owner to meditate in front of it for 20 minutes 3 times a day. Talk about high maintenance. If a person refuses to do these things while in possession of the mask, it is said that a cruel fate awaits them. I mean, what do you expect when you anger an ancient spirit? In our number 5 spot today, we have the cursed chest. The story of this cursed chest starts off with a horrible person named Jeremiah Graham, who is said to have been making preparations for his firstborn son. Part of these preparations was having a hand-carved chest made, and the person he got to make this chest was a man who he had enslaved named Remus. When Remus finished the chest, Jeremiah was not satisfied, so he began to harm Remus, who would unfortunately later pass away from his injuries. The other people who lived and worked in the home were rightfully horrified and angry about this situation, so they decided to sprinkle dried owl blood inside of the drawers, all while placing a curse on the chest. It is said that the curse brought tragedy to anyone who put their clothes inside of it, and apparently it is a curse that is working with a vengeance, as it is said that this chest and the curse are responsible for taking the lives of at least 16 people. In our number 4 spot today, we have the goblet. This is an item that was found in a museum, but it was a museum of specifically haunted things, so I feel like it still counts. This goblet is said to have been used for rituals of necromancy, which poses a few questions for me personally. What did they put in it and presumably drink out of it? Holy water? Wine? Blood? All of the above? Who knows? Either way, here's the real kicker. This goblet was of course for sale on eBay, because why not? And the seller was claiming that it has an amazing energy to it. Okay, what kind of energy? Well, they said that some find it strangely positive, but that many perceive it as negative and malignant. Alright. Don't think I'll be bidding on that auction, to be honest. In our number 3 spot today, we have the beds. Back in 1986, couple Deborah and Alan Tallman moved into a new home with their children in Wisconsin. The following year, they bought a second-hand set of bunk beds for their children for $100, but as it would turn out, they bought much more than they had originally bargained for. When they brought the bunk beds into their home, they clearly must have brought something else along with it. It started when they began to see strange shapes in their home, and they would hear disembodied voices that, despite how hard they tried, they could not find the source of. They found themselves fighting with clocks and radios that turned on and off by themselves. They would find furniture that had moved seemingly all by itself, and sometimes they'd even see an apparition of an old woman. In the end, they not only threw the beds in a landfill, but they also moved from the home just to be safe. As far as we know, the beds remained in the landfill, but who's to say for sure? In our number 2 spot today, we have the Belcourt Castle chairs. Belcourt Castle is located in Newport, Rhode Island, and it is a former summer cottage. Construction on the cottage started in 1891, with it being completed in 1894, and inside there is a ballroom. This ballroom is important because it is said that it holds a group of haunted chairs. People who have visited the castle have reported a ton of strange happenings regarding this specific set of chairs. The reports include things like feeling chills racing up and down their spines, or feeling a strange sensation in a shift of energy while standing near the chairs, and some people have even explained how they have been pushed out of the chairs by an invisible force. I feel like just hearing stories might be enough to explain the energy shift some people are feeling, but actually being pushed out of a chair by some sort of invisible force would be absolutely terrifying. In our number 1 spot today, we have doorknobs. To be honest, I wasn't expecting to ever hear about haunted doorknobs, but this might just be a thing that really does exist. These doorknobs were listed on eBay, and the seller explained that they were once the knobs seen on the doors at an asylum, which truly lands on the list of creepiest places in the world. Considering everything that is said to have gone on at places like these, it truly doesn't surprise me one bit. We're looking at you, lobotomies and other horrific mental health treatments of the past. These doorknobs must have quite literally opened the door to some terrifying things that I'm sure many of us would prefer to not even think about. According to the eBay listing, the asylum that they came from after it was abandoned is said to have had strange whispers whispers, occurrences, and horrifying noises coming from it. This is all to say that maybe that trip to Home Depot is better than buying antique just this one time. Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Anna Baker's wedding dress. In 1836, a man named Elias Baker purchased a mansion in Altoona, Pennsylvania, and moved his small family in. Elias's oldest daughter was named Anna, and when she fell in love with a steel worker, things took a very dark turn. Anna's father didn't want her dating this man, but she kept doing it in secret. The story goes that Anna and the man planned a secret wedding and they were going to elope. Unfortunately, Elias found out and freaked out. He apparently purchased the steel mill that this man worked for and then forced him to have to move to an entirely different city so as to prevent him from being able to continue seeing Anna. Anna of course was furious with her father, and I'm sure this was only made worse by his decision to offer other men to her, to which she of course declined because that's just weird. Anna instead locked herself in her room with her wedding dress that she never got to wear. Anna unfortunately never married after that and spent the rest of her life being terribly upset about the whole incident. After her death, it is said that her anger and despair ended up going into the wedding dress. Members of the Baker family reported seeing the dress in different places around the house despite no one moving it themselves. Some have even reported seeing Anna's spirit dressed in the gown around the house as well. In our number 9 spot today, we have The Hands Resist Him. The Hands Resist Him is a painting created by artist Bill Stoneham, and it is supposed to represent the doorway that connects our world with the world of the spirits. The doorway to the other side. This is extra suspicious considering owners of the painting have claimed that they have seen the characters in the painting move, or sometimes even disappear at night. The painting is said to depict Bill as a child looking quite sad with a doll with creepy hollow eyes. In the background you can see mysterious hands reaching out towards the boy. The creepiness of the painting is only elevated when we hear the stories of the reported 3 people who passed away after coming into contact with the painting. It ended up kind of disappearing for around 15 years until it popped back up on eBay. Even then, the seller warned potential buyers that the painting was haunted and claimed that the boy in the painting would come out of it and scare their child. The painting ended up being sold for $1,025 to a buyer in Michigan, and at this point it's unclear if they've had any troubles with the rumored hauntings and curses. In our number 8 spot today, we have the cursed phone number. I didn't know a phone number could be cursed, but apparently it's true, and I know a phone number technically isn't an object, but I still feel like this had to be included today because it's just too crazy to not. There was a Bulgarian phone number that is said to have been in use for 10 years before it was closed. The reason why it ended up being closed and put out of use is because it is rumored to have belonged to 3 separate people who all died of mysterious circumstances after having been assigned the phone number. Apparently all of the deaths took place shortly after the person had been assigned the number, and they were all seemingly a bit suspicious, thus the rumors of the cursed telephone number began to spread. After this, the company made the decision to suspend the phone number, and they didn't give out details as to why. I wonder if the two are related. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Belcourt Castle chairs. Belcourt Castle is located in Newport, Rhode Island, and it is a former summer cottage. Construction on the cottage started in 1891, with it being completed in 1894, and inside there is a ballroom. The ballroom is important because it is said that it holds a group of haunted chairs. People who have visited the castle have reported a ton of strange happenings regarding this specific set of chairs. The reports include things like feeling chills racing up and down their spines, or feeling a strange sensation in a shift of energy while standing near the chairs, and some people have even explained how they have been pushed out of the chairs by an invisible force. I feel like just hearing stories might be enough to explain the energy shift some people are feeling, but actually being pushed out of a chair by some sort of invisible force would be absolutely terrifying. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Anguished Man. While it is unknown who or when it was created, this painting is said to carry some kind of a curse. It is rumored that whoever created it mixed his blood with the oil paint, and when he finished creating it, he ended up taking his own life. When a woman who is referred to as Mrs. Robinson originally took possession of the painting after it was given to her by a family friend, she immediately knew that something was wrong with it. She ended up passing it along to her grandson Sean, who currently still owns the painting. When Sean hung the painting up, they apparently started experiencing paranormal events. The Robinson family has reported many different strange events that have happened in relation to the painting, such as hearing screams and groans coming from it, as well as hearing doors creaking when no one is around them, and being awoken in the middle of the night by blood-curdling screams that they can't find the source of. Sean has even uploaded videos to YouTube where he shows these paranormal events, and it has been reported that the family now keeps the painting hidden away in the basement, which is probably for the best. In our number 5 spot today we have the Dark Mirror. This mirror now resides within the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and Occult, and just that alone is enough to know it deserves a spot on today's list. The museum received this mirror from the owner who had purchased it from a psychic fair. It is believed that this mirror was created sometime around the 1820s or 30s, and it is actually quite beautiful to look at despite the sinister things it seems to hold. The owner who gave it to the museum explained that every time they peered into the mirror, they saw these extremely upsetting things while looking into the dark mirror's reflection. The museum has said that since they added the mirror to their collection, there have been guests who have also reported the same kind of things. Guests have claimed to see things reflected back at them like sightings of their own corpse. In our number 4 spot today we have Old Nick. Old Nick is often referred to as the Swansea Devil, and his story dates back to the 1890s, although he now resides in the Swansea Museum. So, back in the 1890s, there was the prestigious St. Mary's Church located right in the center of town. The church decided to do some renovations and they put out some ads to hire someone. When a local builder applied for the job and was turned down, he had a major overreaction and decided he wanted to get some kind of revenge. He went and bought the row of cottages that lay next to the church and then demolished them all. In their place he built large brick offices and then commissioned the carving of Old Nick and placed him right on top of the office building looking down at St. Mary's Church. Legend goes that he even placed the curse himself by saying, quote, "When your church is destroyed and burnt to the ground, my devil will remain laughing," end quote. Some years later during World War II, a German blitz came through the town and it left most of it, including St. Mary's, completely destroyed and burnt to the ground. But the office building with Old Nick was undamaged and remained standing. For a while Old Nick seemed to kind of disappear, but once he resurfaced there was a petition to put him back to where he was before, as well as a subsequent counter petition to put him far, far away from the rebuilt St. Mary's Church. As of now, Old Nick resides behind glass in the Swansea Museum, and it is said that he is enclosed in glass more for our protection rather than his. In our number 3 spot today we have the Cursed Portrait. Bernardo de Galvez was born in Spain in 1746 and he went on to become a military leader. He became well known for helping American colonies during the War of Independence before he apparently passed away under mysterious circumstances in 1786. There is a portrait of Bernardo that resides in the Galvez Hotel in Galveston, Texas, which is said to be one of the most haunted hotels in the world, and that makes sense because this portrait is said to be one of the cursed objects that gives the hotel its spooky title. The portrait is located at the end of a hallway in the hotel, and guests have reported the eyes following their every move. People also report a cold or uncomfortable feeling when they get close to the painting, and this is said to be Bernardo's spirit. Some people even swear they can feel him following them around the hotel. It is also said that any picture you try to take of the portrait will come out blurry and distorted unless you ask Bernardo for permission first. In our number 2 spot today we have the Koh-i-Noor diamond. This diamond has an extremely controversial history and is the source of a lot of debate, but regardless of the ongoing conversations over who really owns it, we are here to talk about the curse that this stone is said to hold. This diamond dates back thousands of years and its curse is said to only affect men. It is said that the jewel can bring about great wealth, but it can also bring great misfortune as well to those who own it. Folklore states that he who owns this diamond will own the world, but will also know all of its misfortunes. Only God or women can wear it with impunity. Throughout the history of the diamond, it was passed among many people and rulers who all fought bloody battles while in possession of it. Every prince who had it is said to have ultimately lost either their power or their life while in possession of it as well. Part of the controversy of the diamond is how it ended up in the hands of the British royal family during colonization in the 1800s. Ever since then, it has only been worn by female monarchs, including Queen Victoria and Queen Elizabeth. In our number 1 spot today we have James Dean's car. Okay, this one might seem like a bit of a wild card, but hear me out. Famous actor James Dean passed away from a car accident on September 30th, 1955. At the time he was driving his silver Porsche 550 Spyder, which he he had just recently purchased. This was only the beginning of the car's curse, however, as after James' passing, the remnants of the totaled car were bought by a man named George Vase. He decided to sell parts of the car to James' fans, but when the car was being worked on and taken apart, it ended up falling on a mechanic and it crushed him to death. These two incidents are more than enough to now consider the car cursed, but it still continues on. Once the people who had purchased some of the car parts began receiving them, more strange things happened. 3 of the people who received parts ended up in car accidents, all of which were sadly quite severe. The shell of the car was also stolen, and to this day, it has never been recovered. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the Screaming Skull. Bettiscombe Manor is often referred to as the House of the Screaming Skull thanks to a legend that dates back to the 19th century. Legend goes that the owner of the manor at the time of this legend had a slave who fell seriously ill. As he lay dying, he had one last request, which was to have his body returned to his home. It's a pretty fair request and truly the least this family could have done for the man. In fact, he even said that he would never rest until his body was returned home. Of course, the owner of the manor was a huge piece of work who refused, citing that this would make the burial far too expensive, and instead he ended up having the body buried on the grounds of the manor. It is said that after this, the village in which the manor resides was plagued with ghostly screams and cries coming from the cemetery. Apparently, at the manor, they began experiencing things like the windows rattling and the doors slamming, seemingly of their own accord. Listen, I wish that this man could have just rested at home like he was supposed to be, but considering how awful these people were, I am so happy that he made sure everyone and their families were haunted because of their greedy behavior. In the end, it is said that the hauntings got so bad they ended up exhuming the body and bringing it into the manor. From here, it is said that the body somehow disappeared, all except for the skull, which still resides in the manor. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Iceman. Okay, so this is not an object because it's a mummy, but I still had to include him on this list because the story is so crazy. The mummy of Otzi, who is also referred to as the Iceman, was found in 1991 in the Otzal Alps in Italy. It is believed that Otzi lived around 3000 BC and his body became mummified and preserved because of the glacier that surrounded him post-mortem. While this is an incredibly interesting discovery, the finding of Otzi may have come in a package with an old curse just waiting to be released. Here's the thing, the people who helped with the discovery of Otzi are all dying under mysterious circumstances. I mean, we are currently at person number 7 within 1 year, so that's very suspicious. When molecular archaeologist Tom Loy was writing a book about Otzi, he passed away from a blood-related condition that he was diagnosed with shortly after becoming involved with the Iceman. The German tourist Helmut Simon, who discovered the mummy, felt his death while hiking in the same spot he saw Otzi. Dieter Warnick, who was the head of the mountain rescue team that was assigned to finding the mummy, died of a heart attack at just age 45, just an hour after Simon's funeral. To avoid this becoming an hour-long list, I'll stop here, but that is just half of those who seemingly fell victim to the curse of the Iceman. I don't know, maybe disturbing a man who's been in the same spot for 53 centuries wasn't the best idea anyone has ever had. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Atlantis Ring. The Atlantis Ring was originally made of clay and it was found in 1860 in the Valley of the Kings in a tomb of an Egyptian high priest. It was then passed on to Howard Carter, who kept it until he passed away in 1939. The ring was believed to be at least 5,000 years old and it had geometric symbols carved into it that were unlike anything known in Egypt. Here's where the story gets a little weirder though. Howard is one of the people who discovered King Tut's tomb, and he would later tell people that he was wearing a talisman when the tomb was opened, aka the Atlantis Ring. He claimed that the ring gave him protection, and that just might be true because he is the only member of the team who didn't die a mysterious death after the opening of the tomb. Even those who visited shortly after the opening of the tomb were subjected to this curse, with a total of 18 victims in the end. Howard said that this ring is what protected him against whatever evil forces were at play. So I guess maybe the Atlantis Ring is more like an anti-cursed object? I don't know, but what I do know is that it is all quite curious. There are now replicas that are sold, but I'm sure none hold the power of the real deal. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Bassano vase. The Bassano vase was cast from silver in the 15th century and was apparently a wedding present for a bride who lived in a small village in Napoli. On the wedding night, however, the bride was found dying on the floor with her hands wrapped around the vase. With her last breaths, she vowed to have her revenge, and at this point point it became unclear whether the vase was already cursed, or perhaps if this may be what caused the curse in the first place. As time went on, the vase was handed from person to person within her family, and with each new owner came a mysterious death. Because of this, the family decided to hide the vase away in some sort of secret location, and this worked for a while until the vase was unearthed once more in 1988. The vase also contained a piece of paper from the family that warned, "Beware, this vase brings death." Well, of course, whoever found this vase did not listen, and instead they sold the vase once again. The first buyer, who is said to have been a pharmacist, owned the vase for 3 months before passing away under mysterious circumstances. Then there was the 37-year-old surgeon who died after having the vase for 2 months. After this was the archaeologist who only made it 3 months with this vase in his possession, and at this point, you get where this is going. At this point, we don't know exactly where this vase ended up, but I'm hoping it's somewhere deep underground, or in space, or somewhere else far, far away from us all. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Belcourt Castle chairs. Belcourt Castle is located in Newport, Rhode Island, and it is a former summer cottage. Construction on the cottage started in 1891, with it being completed in 1894, and inside there is a ballroom. This ballroom is important because it is said that it holds a group of haunted chairs. People who have visited the castle have reported a ton of strange happenings regarding this specific set of chairs. The reports include things like feeling chills racing up and down their spines, or feeling a strange sensation and a shift of energy while standing near the chairs, and some people have even explained how they have been pushed out of the chairs by an invisible force. I feel like just hearing these stories might be enough to explain the energy shift some people are feeling, but actually being pushed out of a chair by some sort of invisible force would be absolutely terrifying. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Koh-i-Noor diamond. This diamond has an extremely controversial history, and it is the source of a lot of debate, but regardless of the ongoing conversations over who really owns it, we are here to talk about the curse that this stone is said to hold. The diamond dates back thousands of years, and its curse is said to only affect men. It is said that the jewel can bring about great wealth, but it can also bring great misfortune as well to those who own it. Folklore states that, quote, "He who owns this diamond will own the world, but will also know all its misfortunes. Only God or women can wear it with impunity." Throughout the history of the diamond, it was passed among many people and rulers who all fought bloody battles while in possession of it. Every prince who had it is said to have ultimately either lost their power or their life while in possession of it as well. Part of the controversy of the diamond is how it ended up in the hands of the British royal family during colonization in the 1800s. Ever since then, it has only been worn by female monarchs, including Queen Victoria and Queen Elizabeth. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Destiny Ring. Rudolph Valentino was an incredibly famous silent film star before he passed away at the super young age of just 31 years old, and there are many out there who believe his untimely death was caused by the Destiny Ring. This ring is one that he picked up from a California jeweler. Before purchasing it, there were warnings of the stories which claimed that this ring was cursed, but Rudolph decided to go ahead with the purchase anyway. It is said after this ring came into his possession, his luck began to turn. The movies he starred in started to do poorly, some even flopping, and his career began to struggle. From there, he fell incredibly ill, and when he passed away, he was wearing this cursed ring. From there, after his death, his lover ended up receiving the ring, but once it was in her possession, she too fell extremely ill, and she decided to give the ring away. All the owners after that were reported to have died in strange ways or under mysterious circumstances, which has led to the ring now being placed in a bank vault, all locked up so that it hopefully can never cause harm to anyone again. In our number 3 spot today, we have The Orphan's Story. This is a book that was originally written in the early 1600s, but it didn't end up getting published until 2018. The Orphan's Story is about a 14-year-old Spanish boy who heads to the Americas. You know, a classic kind of coming-of-age feel-good story, right? Well, not exactly, and that is exactly the reason why it took so long for it to be published. While the curse in this book doesn't come from the story itself, there is something dark lurking in those pages. The book's publisher, Belinda Palacios, who worked on the book for 2 years, explained that throughout those years, she was often warned of the cursed book and how every publisher who had tried to work on it before ended up passing away in a mysterious way before they could finish the book. When Belinda looked into this, it turned out to be true. Her research showed that those who tried tried to edit the book before either found themselves in horrible accidents or with strange illnesses. Luckily, Belinda made it through the process unscathed, so let's hope that maybe the curse has been lifted. Either way, it's probably one I'll personally stay away from. In our number 2 spot today, we have the van. Dr. Kevorkian was a man who's called an angel of death. If you haven't heard of these people before, they are doctors who like to euthanize patients, normally against their will. So this piece of work was doing just that, and one of his most important tools was his large white van. Yeah, huge red flag already. The van later went on to have the nickname Deathmobile, and it made headlines again when it found its way into a pawn shop. The reason the person who had previously had it didn't want it anymore is because they claimed that there were strange occurrences that began happening once it was in their possession. This story led to paranormal investigator and ghost hunter Zach Bagan purchasing it. Apparently people who enter the van immediately feel just overwhelming sadness, and they also feel like there are unseen eyes that are watching them at all times. In our number 1 spot today, we have the cursed chest. The story of this cursed chest starts off with a horrible person named Jeremiah Graham, who is said to have been making preparations for his firstborn son. Part of these preparations was having a hand-carved chest made, and the person he got to make this chest was a man who he had enslaved named Remus. When Remus finished the chest, Jeremiah was not satisfied, so he began to harm Remus, who would unfortunately later pass away from his injuries. The other people who lived and worked in the home were rightfully horrified and angry about this situation, so they decided to sprinkle dried owl blood inside of the drawers, all while placing a curse on the chest. It is said that the curse brought tragedy to anyone who put their clothes inside of it, and apparently it is a curse that is working with a vengeance, as it is said that this chest and the curse are responsible for taking the lives of at least 16 people.
At number 10, the Dead Book Box. Now, do you remember that the 2012 movie The Possession was based on a true story? Well, that story was based on a Dead Book box. Now that specific box that the movie was based on is one that now Zach Bagans has at his haunted museum. And this box is actually a wine cabinet that is allegedly haunted by a Dead Book. And now, a debug is Yiddish for a malicious possessing spirit that people believe to be a dislocated soul of a dead person. And so it becomes trapped in an object, like this wine box, until a person helps release the spirit. Now in Baggins' box, it's believed the restless spirit can possess the living, and that's why Zach Baggins is keeping the cabinet closed, because he's a little bit scared of it himself, I would think. Now, the box was originally posted on eBay for sale by a man named Kevin Manis, who was having a ton of trouble with it. Anytime he gave it as a gift to someone, they experienced strange issues and its darkness, and it passed through the hands of others afterwards, as they would each have their own unnerving experiences with the box. At Zach Baggins' museum, if you want to see the box, you must insist to see it and be 18 years of age or older and sign a liability waiver, because they're not joking around. Now, not all exhibits at the museum stay open all the time. At number 9, we have the Devil's Rocking Chair. Baggins acquired a rocking chair that was owned by the family whose stories are probably what inspired The Conjuring 3. Now, this was the Devil Made Me Do It case in the early 80s. During stories talking about David Glatzel's possession, Ed and Lorraine Warren said the rocking chair would rock on its own, levitate, and even vanish and reappear. Now, David and Lorraine also claimed to have seen the devil sitting in it, so take that as you will. Now, with all this spooky stuff in mind, Zach Baggins was just sold. He was like, I need this chair. This is, of course, though, a thing that happened on the opening night of the Devil Chair exhibit, where he was like, look at this cool chair. 5 people bawled uncontrollably and 1 woman collapsed. So, according to TMZ, just a few hours after Baggins opened the exhibit, he shut down the exhibit. But then, a couple weeks later, opened it back up, less issues. But that opening night started with a bang. But on to number 8, Jack's van. Now, another thing Baggins has is Dr. Jack Kevorkian's assisted suicide van. Nicknamed Dr. Death, Kevorkian helped over 100 people with terminal illnesses end their lives during the 90s. He did his time for prison for 8 years under charges of second-degree murder and died in 2011 at the age of 83. Now, there is obviously a wide contrast in views on what took place in this van. Some see what the doctor did as monstrous and pin him as a murderer, while others paint him as an activist who wanted wanted to make sure those who wanted to pass did so painlessly and on their own terms. Either way, heightened emotions can come to those who see the van, and fear may be one of them. And that might be one reason that Zak Bagans was like, I want this in my haunted museum. So let's go on to number 7. Another thing there, Bela Lugosi's mirror. Now this mirror has many stories attached to it, especially since its namesake comes from its connection to Bela Lugosi. And now, if that isn't ringing any bells, he is most well known for playing Dracula in the 1931 film, so quite a ways back. Now, guides of the tour at the museum say that Lugosi would use the mirror as a medium for scrying and trying to talk to his dead wife, but the truth is the only confirmed connection is that it was originally said to have once been in Bela Lugosi's house, plus none of his 5 wives died while he was married to them, and there is no documentation of him participating in the occult, but the mirror has seen some things. It was in the room when Frank Salitri was mysteriously murdered, a crime that still has not been solved. He was found bound up in the master bedroom with a single gunshot in the back of his head. So maybe those who let their minds wander while looking into this mirror fall ill when they project those ideas onto the mirror, or maybe the mirror itself has the capacity to haunt and curse those who look into it. Now, people say they've seen entities reach out to them through the mirror or have the sensation of having their necks bitten while looking into it, but nothing has been confirmed. On to number 6, John Morell's preserved thumb. And now, I don't know exactly what Zak Bagans is saying about this thumb, but it's not John Morell's. Now, he's probably basing his information off an incredulous book written by Virgil Stewart, and the backstory is, John Morell in this book is said to be an occult leader and the head of the Mystic Clan that's purpose was to steal slaves to plan an overthrowing of authority. But this book was written by Virgil Stewart, who wrote it in an attempt to get more clout after capturing John Morell, who was likely just a horse thief and a slave stealer. Now, Stewart just kind of blew the situation completely out of proportion to try to get more street cred, so while the thumb is real and a real thumb, it's not Morell's, who probably died in prison and was buried with all of his thumbs on him. And now, that's not to say what it stands for isn't scary. People in Mississippi read the book and believed in it, believed in what Stewart was saying. In Tennessee, they knew the truth because they knew Stewart and he was just fabricating things, but in Mississippi, ooh, Nelly, they were suspicious of one another so much. The summer of 1835, people in Mississippi were killing one another and their innocent slaves on the off chance any of them was part of this mystic clan, which is a clan that didn't exist. So now you know the harm in falsifying stories, you can see how this little thumb is a creepy bugger and a symbolism of something bigger than it is. So, worth it in a way to have at the museum. Now, another scary thing at number 5, a cauldron previously owned by Ed Gein. Zak Bagans bought this cauldron at an auction and apparently it was found in a shed on the Old Gein property. And if you need a refresher on who Old Gein was, he was a grave robber and murderer that would experiment on human bodies, making masks of human skin to wear around the house and use skulls as soup bowls. So no, I'm not kidding. This was his cauldron and okay, what's the big deal, right? It's a cauldron. Well, it turns out, according to the person who auctioned off this item, Ed Gein stored body parts and blood in this cauldron in his shed. Now, obviously as a collector of the horrendous and haunting, Bagans decided he needed it and now it's on display. Now one thing is for sure, that cauldron would make some killer soup. At number 4, Charles Manson's portraits. Another thing in this haunted museum is a portrait of Charles Manson. And now the portrait isn't just haunting due to it being of a mass murderer and cult leader. No, it's haunting because when you look into the eyes of this image, you are looking at Charles Manson. Well, in a way, you're looking at his ashes. The artist of the portrait, Ryan Almighty, used parts of Charles Manson's ashes for the eyes of this piece. And even wilder, Almighty achieved the reddish brown hues of the piece by using his own blood as the pigment. So this piece really is a little piece of the artist and his muse. Creepy. Now, let's go to number 3, Demon House Staircase. So you may think a staircase doesn't have much inherent scary ideas attached to it, and you're not wrong, but this staircase was a part of a whirlwind scary experience. LaToya Ammons and her 3 children allegedly underwent demonic possession in the house the stairs originated from. While living there while renting, Ammons and her children experienced possession and terrifying experiences like walking up walls, floating over a bed, and feeling choked. So, very haunting experiences. And all this escalated to the point that the Catholic Church backed up a priest who performed 3 exorcisms on Ammons. And then the family relocated for their own safety with the help of Department of Child Services, and Zak Bagans then bought the house. He was interested with the reported demonic possessions and stories and explored the house until he demolished it, thinking, better done with it. He only kept a staircase and a little bit of carpet that's sealed off in a room in his museum that's voluntary for visitors to see, and even voluntary for staff to see because of the entities associated with it. Which is very nice for the staff members. It's like, it's so spooky. It's okay, you don't have to see it. I appreciate that. But now on to number 2, a Chris Farley Polaroid. At Zak Bagans' Haunted Museum, he has this celebrity deaths room, which first of all, I think it's really weird for people to fixate on the death of someone they don't know, and I think this item I'm going to talk about is disrespectful. In the celebrity death room, there is a Polaroid of Chris Farley after his overdose that killed him. It was acquired from a police officer that was at the scene. Since I cannot and will not show that photo, just know that it was a photo of his dead body after a drug overdose that visitors have described as sickening, disgusting, shocking, and horrifying. Now, using the image of a dead person, a real person, as a gimmick is in poor taste and shows a lack of empathy on Bagans' behalf, and that scares me, so that's included on this list. On to number 1, Peggy the doll in Peggy's room. Now this one has a past. Let's talk about this doll before it got to the museum. Peggy was sent to a British paranormal investigator named Jane Harris after Peggy's previous owner was having some nightmares where the doll would haunt her dreams. That owner would wake up hot and shaken with fevers and hallucinations, and even her local priest couldn't help her out. She eventually figured it was because of Peggy the doll and sent her off to Harris. Once Jane Harris and her team had the doll, they tried to figure out what was up, and they say that Peggy is possessed by the spirit of a woman from London, born in 1946 and died of some sort of chest condition, which is very specific. Wow. Yes, that's the history, but how does Peggy haunt? Well, apparently through dreams, pushing people away from entering her room in the haunted museum, or even light bulbs going out when people mention Peggy's name. Now, people are warned not to look her in the eye because they could feel chest pains, nausea to the point of vomiting, or really bad headaches. And now this could be the spirit within the doll circumventing some of her own pain, or many coincidences lined up together. But either way, many say the scariest thing they saw on their trip to Zak Bagans' Haunted Museum was Peggy.
Kicking off the list at number 10. British Museum's adult room. Okay, young ones, hide your eyes, here we go. We'll kick this list off on a scandalous note. The British Museum, they have a long lost adult themed room, to put it lightly. The museum itself dates back to the mid 1700s. In its initial opening, the museum only let 10 people in at a time. Now, of course, it holds many more people every day, but some collections not everybody can handle. In the Victorian era, the museum had a secret room for obscene objects, or objects that are deemed perverse. There's a part of a temple wall that shows, you know, the dirtiest deed being done. And the collection includes a Roman terracotta lamp that depicts a naked woman on a crocodile. Number 9. Flesh-eating beetle room. Okay, enough about ancient butts. Let's move on to the weird, shall we? Chicago's Field Museum. This one's chock full of secret rooms. I'll mention one more on this list later on, but I have to include the flesh-eating beetle room. The Field Museum uses real hide beetles to clean its specimens in order to get each of these carcasses ready for showtime. These beetles are on the clock. They're business-oriented. In just a few hours, a small rodent can be completely cleaned. Number 8. Naples' secret adult room. Okay, we can all agree that last one was pretty disgusting, so I'll liven up the mood once again with some scandalous Pompeii excavations. After the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD, the small city of Pompeii was of course covered in hot ash. Now the ancient Roman ruin is still being uncovered today, but back in the 1700s, most of the lost city was excavated for the first time in history. And the King of Naples got the best of the best, right? He was first up, first dibs. Most of the contents are now kept in the Archaeological Museum in Naples, but some have to be held in the secret room. In the past, you had to receive permission from the king himself to take a quick peek at this sensual art. Number 7. Medici Chapels. This one begins with an epic discovery, okay? Back in 1975, the director of the Medici Chapels Museum in Florence, Italy, was searching for a new exit route for visitors. He was trying to expand whilst controlling traffic a little bit more, right? We love big moves. Now, in doing so, the director himself stumbled across this trap door beneath a closet. There also lies a few clues on the walls. There are sketches and drawings, the style of which seems to belong to one Leonardo da Vinci. Yeah, this is pretty big news. This room was immediately closed for renovations. It was held a secret until 2020, so for many, of course, this is still widely unknown, so I hope you learned a thing or two so far in this list. If you live in the area, go check out some ancient trapdoors in Italy. There you go. Number 6. Secret insect room. If you're in Liverpool and you love insects, oh boy, do I have just the tea for you. Let's go. Inside the World Museum in Liverpool lies a secret room, and inside it contains around 1 million insects. Don't worry, these ones are dead this time around. This collection began back in 1855. The 13th Earl of Derby, he's like, you know what? I need a cupboard full of shiny bugs. Let's make it happen, gang. Yeah, let's do it. Thousands of specimens now hide in this room, including the world's largest beetle and a moth with the largest wingspan. Big old shirt with wings, there you go. Imagine Night at the Museum, but it takes place in the World Museum in London. Bugs everywhere. Ben Stiller would not make it out, no way. There would not be 3 sequels. Number 5, restricted Aboriginal art. While some collections are kept out of sight for museum visitors because they're, you know, extremely scandalous in nature or they're live bugs, others are kept in secret rooms out of respect. In the National Museum of Australia, David Couse, senior curator of the museum's Aboriginal programs, he wrote this long report explaining the choice to hide these artifacts from history. Now, David himself has said, and I quote, that it is the responsibility of museums to respect the cultures they want to depict. The public use of Aboriginal secrets and or sacred objects is not consistent with this responsibility, end quote. In order to gain access to these restricted Aboriginal objects, these beautiful pearl shell ornaments, you need permission from traditional Aboriginal custodians. Can't just get a fast pass and go take a peek. Not that easy, my friends. Number 4. Vatican secrets. Vatican archives are 53 miles long, so there's a lot of secrets hiding down there, okay? There's around 35,000 volumes of catalog. The Vatican's secret archives are no joke. They're very real, but in order to see them for yourselves, it's gonna take some time. You gotta earn it, okay? Again, you can't just beep, fast pass your way in. The indexes are not public, hence why I'm including them in this list. Only highly respected scholars can access it after they're 75 years old. Their official purpose is to house holy official paperwork, and of course, it's a treasure trove of anything and everything related to the Pope, as well as these long lost ancient documents, because where else do you safely store a letter from Mary Queen of Scots, right? Dudes are out here hucking cakes at the Mona Lisa. Yeah, we're gonna keep these ancient notes locked up, I think. No one's gonna be hucking cakes at this one. Queen Mary of Scots was killed after serving roughly 20 years in custody, but eventually she was sentenced to death for conspiring to kill Queen Elizabeth I. But before she met her untimely fate, she wrote a letter to Pope Sixtus V, literally begging for her life in this letter. But of course, as we now know, the Pope did not intervene, and on February 8th, 1587, Mary Queen of Scots was executed. Now, when it comes to cursed items withheld from the public, this note is definitely up there. There's also a secret room that contains the 200-foot tall Tower of the Winds, only accessible through these secret archives, so we're never gonna see them. Number 3. King Tut's cursed artifacts. The new Grand Egyptian Museum was set to open in 2018, and then finally it did in 2021. And while that's quite recent, the contents displayed inside certainly are not. For the first time in history, King Tut's ancient belongings, like all of them discovered with him, will now be on display. Now, prior to this museum being open, we only saw 150 artifacts from his tomb. They took all these pieces out on tour, like their Kiss or something. But now this museum will house thousands of artifacts. We could all go and see it in one place. There's over 7,000 square meters. It's quite a display. If you have a chance to visit the Grand Egyptian Museum, or if you saw this King Tut World Tour on the road, I'm jealous, because many of these artifacts were held aside from the public because they were deemed cursed. So if you visit, don't touch anything, please. Number 2. Deathly Pearls. If you've seen the movie Annabelle Comes Home, this next secret room in a secret museum should ring a bell. Character Daniela in the movie, she tries to communicate to a loved one beyond the grave. Now, in order to do so, she puts on a bracelet from Ed and Lorraine's Occult Museum. Now, there isn't a mourning bracelet in the real Occult Museum, but there is such thing as the Pearls of Death, and you cannot touch them, obviously. These are very real and they are very locked up, and they're also very lovely, might I add. I think they would look fabulous on me. These pearls were added to the museum after a woman claimed they were strangling her by themselves. The second this poor woman put these pearls on, she needed people around her to help yank the pearls from her neck. Yeah, these haunted pearls have nothing on Martha Wayne. Don't touch them. And finally, number 1. A secret bowling alley. We'll end this list on a fun note because it's almost Friday and I'm here to have fun. And because this is probably the coolest one on this list, in my personal opinion. The Frick collection resides in the former home of Henry Frick, of course. This is on Manhattan's Upper East Side. A handful of you have probably been here. Again, I'm jealous. This collection is a museum in itself. It contains paintings, sculptures, furniture, all historical, and all made from European artists from as far back as the 13th century. The mansion itself is rather new. That was built in 1913, and of course it was also used as the Frick's family residence. A rich family in the early 1900s. You already know there's some secret rooms, right? Areas closed off to the public, but what's hiding in there, right? What are we missing? Well, we're missing fun, rich family stuff. Like, you know, a 2-lane bowling alley built in 1914, and a billiards room, and a wood shop, and even a tiny diner, in case you get hungry. You and your rich purge family, you can go eat in a secret diner. There you go, enjoy it, 1900s.